When he was close. You saw the one come up the far side.
I call this regular meeting of the Mexico City Council to order.
Councilman Nichol. Chairman Pro Tem Williams.
Yes.
Councilman Miller.
Yes.
Mayor Miller. Councilman Lash.
Yes. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, but due to lack of quorum, we will pass on that and put it on the next meeting agenda. Under new business, we have ordinance bill number 2016-47, two readings by title only and passage. Bruce?
Yes, this is another purchase of a hangar. This is one of those individual private hangars that was built, and we're giving them the right to purchase those and then lease the land back. To cover the details of this particular one, we will turn to Russell Runge.
Yes, as we've done in the past, these hangars were built by private owners, and at the end of their 25-year period, it would revert to the city. And we've allowed for them to be able to purchase their hangars outright, going backwards in time to determine the sales price, and then setting up a land lease for the land for them to lease into the future. Every 5 years, that land lease will be renewed and looked at again as far as making sure that it's equitable. So, no different than the other 2 or 3 that we have done in the past as well. So, if anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer those.
I suppose since you have $80 written per month, that this does fall in the category of 2,000 to 3,000 square feet?
Yes, it's, I believe, 2,300 square feet.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, I move for reading of bill number 2016-47, first reading by title only.
Second.
Chairman Pro Tem Williams.
Yes.
Councilman Miller.
Yes.
Councilman Lash.
Yes. Bill number 2016-47, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a lease of a parcel of land at the Mexico Memorial Airport and sale of airport hangar to C.W. Caldwell and Caldwell Farms Incorporated. Move for second reading by title only, bill number 2016-47.
Second.
Chairman Pro Tem Williams.
Yes.
Councilman Miller.
Yes.
Councilman Lash.
Yes. Bill number 2016-47, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a lease of a parcel of land at the Mexico Memorial Airport and sale of airport hangar to C.W. Caldwell and Caldwell Farms Incorporated. Move for passage of bill number 2016-47.
Second.
Chairman Pro Tem Williams.
Yes.
Councilman Miller.
Yes.
Councilman Lash.
Yes.
The next item's other business, and the first item we have on that is update on the Industrial Development Authority, East Central Missouri Behavioral Services bond issuance. Bruce?
Yes, the East Central Missouri Behavioral Health Services, also known as Arthur Center. This was a bond for $6.6 million, totally based on their ability to pay and their creditworthiness. Initially, when we approved this through the Industrial Development Authority and then Council on the tax exempt portion of this, there are the 2 banks that were involved was Commerce Bank and Central. Since then, Central Bank will not be participating, and the new additional bank that will be would be First Community State Bank. So the Industrial Development Authority had to repass their resolution authorizing the change of banks. Your resolution, as a council resolution, was for tax exemption purposes only, does not require action, but we felt it was important that we put it on the agenda for the record purposes so that you were informed of that there was a bank change. All other terms and conditions of the issue remain the same. And I thought someone from the Arthur Center was going to be here this evening to answer any questions that you have, but I don't see that they've arrived yet, so.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda, it would be claims.
Move we approve.
Second.
Chairman Pro Tem Williams?
Yes.
Councilman Miller?
Yes.
Councilman West?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is comments, starting with council first. Councilman Lesh.
Well, a couple of things that's gone on recently, particularly the Tyronn Lue event and the publicity the community's got. But my comments would be to all of those who really worked on that event to make it happen here in Mexico. Really terrific event. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't here. I was out of town, but it was a really good PR event for Mexico, and it was great to see the community recognize a hometown person who has gone on to be a national figure, and so I thought that was neat. And and I know Bruce has some comments on the storm recovery. I'm not exactly sure what you're going to say about that, but from my perspective and the comments that I've received from people around town, everyone seemed to think that it went really well, storm recovery under difficult circumstances when you've got the number of trees and wires down and everything in the community, that everybody kind of worked together to make it happen. So get our community up and running again. And so I think that was positive. So thank you to all of those who put many hours and hours in, street department and other folks in the city who worked really hard from that perspective. And thank you to all the different linemen and contract people who came into Mexico to make sure we got power back on. So good deal.
Councilman Miller.
Well, echoing your comments on Tyronn Lue, it was a great event. It was a big deal in Mexico. I thought the presentation out to high school went exceptionally well. A lot of good comments. Glad to see in our report that the Moore Street project is going to move maybe a little bit further again, slowly. And on the cleanup, the comments I got were that it was greatly appreciated that we expanded the hours at the stick yard, tree yard, whatever you want to call it. We needed it, and we still need it, because there's still a lot of trees out. That was well received. In fact, at 9 o'clock the morning of the storm, a lady was pointing her finger at me, telling me to get that yard open. Before I said, probably all the city employees are out picking up sticks off the street, and I don't have time to stand at the yard. But then we got a notice it was going to be open from 11 to 7, so I called her back. She said, okay, but I had mine picked up early. That was a good deal.
Bruce.
Yes, I thought the best thing would be is to give a little report on storm damage and cleanup process and kind of where we're going. So I asked 3 of the department directors to give a little report on their particular area, and then if anybody else has any comments. But I think we'll start with Susan. Of course, public safety had, certainly an initial response on a lot of things, and so did streets and parks, and we'll get to those. But we'll start with Susan about some of the things that went on and where they're at.
We were out on the street by 7:10 when the storm came through. We were already moving into our positions for the weather watchers before the warning had even, well, there was ever a thunderstorm warning given, but before the weather got here. And we were preparing to run the warning routes for the sirens that are out of service right now. We started getting the calls of the limbs down, the lines down, the roadways being blocked, and things like that. By that time, there were 9 public safety officers out in 8 patrol cars and an engine 214. Damage seemed to be throughout the whole town, so it wasn't restricted to one neighborhood or one side of town or anything like that, so that spread us out a little bit more. But we prioritized the calls, first in regard to safety, and then we started working through them chronologically until we got through every call and made sure every event was stabilized. 3 of our 4 traffic lights were down, and were down for quite some time. MoDOT came and put some signs up on some of the stop signs, and we left most of it for drivers to navigate on their own, which they seem to handle themselves. And that, for the most part, people were calling saying that it wasn't, but we checked on them very regularly, and they were always being maintaining themselves. We started removing the small stuff, and as a matter of fact, I removed trees out of my way all the way to the station that morning, trash cans, things like that. We blocked off the roads that were impassable, and we kept officers at the 700 to 1,000 block of South Calhoun because of the utility poles that were down and that continued to arc there. We didn't have any fires. We got a couple of fire alarms we had to check out, but we did not have any fires. The street department got the roadways cleared, and we kept a presence through town, with helping the citizens with resources that we had or we could direct them to. And we just kept patrolling, making sure that people were not getting impatient driving through areas that we still had limbs and power lines down. And at the end, we ended up with 16 road hazards that involved no lines, and 40 road hazards that did involve power lines being down or some kind of lines being down. 11 utility problems due to the power outages. 3 smoke or arcing mechanical equipment calls, 3 burglar alarms, because they always happen when that starts to go on. I said 3 fire alarms, 1 roof collapse, and then our regular calls for business that we have on a daily basis. But we had no storms, we had no injuries from the storm-related incidents or in the cleanup efforts either. So that part, it went very smooth. It was just a lot of hectic, busy work for a little while.
Thank you.
Are there any questions that I can maybe, okay.
Kenzie, would you like to give a little report on the streets and wastewater?
Well, as Susan indicated, we had a number of streets blocked, and our first response there really was twofold. Within Public Works, because we've had to deal with disasters and FEMA documentation and recording, we've set up a procedure to track time, equipment, material, and in the case of trees and limbs, debris like that, FEMA has a rather unique requirement that we keep the public tree debris separate from the private tree debris, which accounts for a part of our procedure here to share with you. But we basically put the snowplows on the trucks so that we could push limbs and trees out of the way, and then came back, followed up with cutting them up and hauling them off. That work actually continued today and will continue for a bit. And then we have scheduled, beginning next week, next Monday, to work our way through town to pick up anything that residents have placed behind the curb. Working with Chad to have the brush yard open additional hours for this week. We're hopeful that those residents who can will haul their own, but we will be working our way through probably for most of next week. It really depends on how much is out there, but we'll be picking it up from behind the curb next week. We'll make our way beginning northwest portion of town and working our way through town. Details for that are on the city website and Facebook page, and so we'd encourage folks to kind of keep up with that. That'll let them know what our sequence is and what the size requirements are that the brush needs to be cut to so that we can handle it safely with our personnel and equipment. But overall, I'm proud of the way our fellows responded and took charge. Our perhaps biggest issue, though, was with the wastewater plant being out of power. As you know, our backup generator is under construction, and that has not been completed yet. And so we were without power for about 9 hours last Thursday. We let the flow back up into our I&I basin. To my knowledge, we did not have any severe overflows or anything. I'm sure it affected some of the folks up on Anderson there by Northeast Park. They're the closest and probably had some backflow valves closed during that time period. But Ameren did get power back to us that evening. We were able to pump everything down fairly quickly. And today we're operating normally at the plant.
Chad?
Our primary role right off the bat was to reinforce streets with manpower, and we probably own the lion's share of the chainsaws in the system, so we deployed all that, and then Susan needed assistance with a thing or two, helped them out, and then we did have one shelter that the electric service was destroyed to by a tree that crushed the pole coming across the street. We lost power to the pool, as I think you know. We didn't get it back till Friday afternoon. We had a swing set crushed that's going to have to be replaced. And then the biggest effect probably for us is we've got about 26 full-size trees down that we're having to clean up. And we've got 4 more that have been so damaged that they're going to have to come down and be cleaned up. So, you know, in a year, we typically take out 50 to 60 trees. So we got about half a year's of tree removal in a morning, which is, you know, going to be a big plug of work. We pretty much have everything repaired and ready to go at this point. The shelters are back open, but we'll be cleaning up for at least another week, maybe 2 weeks. By the time we get all of just the brush that's picked up that's blown out and then all the big trees cleaned up, it's going to be a bit. So as you saw, we have one right out front here that we haven't gotten to yet that I think we got through most of the hangers today and stuff that was, you know, leaning up against other trees that could be a danger to the public. And so then we'll start cleaning up just things that are laying on the ground now. So.
Brush yard.
Oh, yeah, brush yard. Sorry. We made that decision right off. Obviously, we needed to have some extra hours, so we opened from 11 to 7 on Friday and Saturday, Thursday and Friday, and then Saturday we opened up extra hours. That first Thursday, we took up 380 loads. I went out and did a brush estimate today. We think we have about 1,700 cubic yards of brush at this point, and I don't think that's not a whole lot more than probably a representative sample of what's going to come in yet. So we've got a plan for separating materials out there and overflow areas planned, and Jay's done a great job dealing with the public and helping with them, and I've had a lot of positive comments. He deserves a lot of credit because he's put in a whole lot of hours and didn't hesitate to do that, so I'd like to thank him. We will probably be bringing in a tub grinder for this. We started looking at volumes today, like I said, and we're pretty sure that we're going to have way more volume than we can run through our chippers. We are going to deploy our chippers. The new chipper and the old chipper both running really helped out on Thursday. We were able to bring in a lot of material quick by chipping into trucks instead of having to have people spending the time going back and forth with loads. I think that's one of the reasons we were able to clean up a lot more quickly. And we'll deploy that chipper on the 18th also, so that we can hopefully get through more material, and then we can haul that material directly out instead of having to bring more to the brush yard. So.
Questions?
Any disaster recovery funds available, or will we get some recovery from any agency?
At this point, we have not heard of any declarations or any of this plan that we're aware of.
Okay. But you're keeping some kind of a work order
We
where you
are.
collect on, and the brush yard?
We're keeping track of all those hours and all
And the
that
brush
stuff.
yard,
Yep.
because that's certainly part of the cleanup. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That's all we have.
Thank you. I'll start with the the storm. All the comments I got were very positive. I actually, our store and Centralia was down without power most of the day there. Some of them came to Mexico the next day and actually made the comment to me. They said, well, it doesn't look like you guys got hit hard at all. And I said, well, most of our town was without power. And they were like, well, it doesn't look like it. And they were like, I can't believe it's that clean already. And I was like, well, our guys did a good job. So, and a couple of their residents told me to tell you guys you did a really good job. So it's always good when you hear people from other communities. They're like, hey. Also, I'd like to give a kudos to Ameren. They were on it quickly. I mean, they had crews in here from Jeff City, St. Louis. I mean, we fed a bunch of them. Well, we fed probably 3/4 of the town, I think, that day. So I appreciated them very much getting the power back on. You guys did a really good job. I appreciate it. And then the Lou event, I got to speak at that. It was just a pretty awesome event. You could just feel the emotion in the room. It was when he walked in with that trophy. It was crazy in there. So I got to speak there, and I got to meet him, and I got to talk to him on Sunday before he did his fireworks. We met up and had some conversation. So. And he's a really good guy, and I told him, and I said in my speech, the biggest thing for him, and that I appreciate with him, is he's just a good role model for the youth of our community. Above everything else he does, I mean, that's just the biggest thing, because he's just a really good guy. I do have two questions. One is, on the corner of the street, how far off the road does somebody have to park? I'm asking because I've had a couple instances where people are parking like really close to the end. I'm like just waiting for somebody to smash into the car. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like when you at an intersection, when you're turning, is there a certain footage they have to be off of that stop sign?
You want to add that?
There is, I'm not sure I can call it off the top of my head. In general, we try to maintain a 30-foot sight distance across corners, but there's a distance back from the stop sign that's required. Is that 15 feet?
I'm not sure. 15 feet sounds good, sounds right, but I don't know off the top of my head either.
Okay. Just let me know if you get a chance. The second thing, I had a person call me yesterday, and this is a strange complaint. Somebody was draining their pool, and it flooded their basement, and they didn't know if there was an ordinance on draining the water from a pool, from above ground pool. Is there any kind of ordinance on that water where it has to go, or?
It has to be dechlorinated, but it can go out over land on the ground. But the water has to be dechlorinated, which if they let it set a few days, it's going to, sun and wind will do that.
3 days.
I just didn't know. They called me at home, and they were like, my basement's flooded, my neighbor is draining their pool. And I was like, I don't know anything about it.
Typically, it's going to be an issue between property owners.
That's what I figured. And then finally, I had an incident at my house a couple days ago. It actually wasn't at my house, it was across the street. And I would like to give your department kudos. It was a very scary situation for the people that live around that house. Your guys were very professional, and you would have never known there was, I mean, you knew if you lived there, but I mean, it was handled very professionally, and I appreciate that personally, and I know my neighborhood appreciated it personally. So, if anybody, any more comments from the council? Seeing none, I will open comments to the public. Please state your name and address so you walk up to the podium, and try and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Seeing none, I will move for adjournment.
Second.
Chairman Pro Tem Williams.
Yes.
Councilman Miller.
Yes.
Councilman West.
Yes.
Who has the radio?